it led to a bunch of different things in the Now program. We started to read books in there and all sorts of things in there. And eventually now I am just reading in class English. We're reading chapter books and stuff by ourselves. In fact, I did great on the exam and stuff. Everything's gone well. It helped me learn how to read and write.
Nice.
It's great.
Excellent, Elliot. And Trevor, how about you? How did it feel when these things progressed?
You somehow rearranged my brain and my process of thinking. And now I can read. I don't know exactly how you did it. I don't know the science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I understand and see it a different way than I used to.
We're on another episode of Dyslexia Success Stories. And I've got the pleasure to bring to you a unique combo. You're not seeing double because one of them's got brown hair and one's got blonde, right? But we've got the pleasure of introducing you to and talking with two brothers, Trevor and Elliot, who are 15 years old, who've had a lifetime of struggle with dyslexia. And we get to do some conversation today on this Dyslexia Success Story about genetics and how much genetics play a piece, but they're not the whole picture, and the link between genetics and dyslexia. So I'm Dr. Tim Conway. I'm a neuropsychologist, peer-reviewed published brain scientist in the fields of dyslexia, learning disabilities, what's called phonological alexia, which means learning problems after a brain damage called stroke, which, guys, that's like 1,000 times more difficult than helping you two learn how to read, because those folks have brain damage and you don't. And then we'll learn more as we go along with other pieces. So Trevor and Elliot, welcome to the show today. How are you guys doing in Texas?
Pretty good. It's cooling down. I can read. That is also true. I am very happy.
Excellent. And Trevor, why is that such a big thing? Because you're 15. Why couldn't you read before?
When you're dyslexic, the only thing you're really good at reading is how to pretend that you know how to read. Not actually
like a reader. Flipping pages?
Yep, just turn the page. This looks interesting for sure. Yeah. I remember doing that a lot.
We would say that diagnostically, you guys would meet the criteria for what we call a more severe degree of dyslexia, which means both of you had reading skills in the early elementary grades.
Yes.
Go ahead, Trevor.
I could spell cat.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you had elementary school level of reading skills, which would be which is about below the 10th percentile, but yet you have IQs that are like in the top 10th percentile. So that had to be a little bit frustrating, if not tremendously frustrating.
Oh,
what do you think?
It was embarrassing. It was quite rough. I sort of learned to live with it for a while, which was not great, but I could live with it. But it's been a real struggle. I remember in kindergarten, the other kids were annoyed at me in class because I didn't know how to spell something on like a spelling test. Every time I had a mental breakdown because I didn't know how to spell a certain word, and no one was willing to help me or really understood. And all the other kids thought I was stupid. Yeah, that happened a lot back when we were younger.
Yeah. And how did that affect your self-esteem? I mean, how did that feel to you personally?
Awful. It was quite devastating. We sort of had to work with it, and as the years went on, we just stopped mentioning dyslexia as much, and just moved on with our lives and pretended like we were reading because we were afraid that if we, looked like we didn't, we would look stupid.
Yeah.
So we would just sort of pick up a book and pretend, which was not great.
And the crazy part is we have the testing, we have the data. We know you guys have like top 10% IQs. So you're the complete opposite of stupid.
I'll take it.
But it feels like that, you guys, when you can't read, it feels like you must be less intelligent. And Trevor, how about you? How did that feel when you struggled to read?
For a time, I genuinely thought I was just stupid. I was terrified. I was like, am I dumb? I didn't understand how to do such simple things to other people. But for some reason, reading a big paragraph, I just start shaking because I don't know how to tackle this.
Yeah.
I don't know how to write. Well, I did kind of, but I didn't know how to tackle something like that. And all I could do was stare at it in fear. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just, here's what we know about the brain from the neuropsychology perspective. When fear goes too high, or what we call anxiety, worry goes too high, this part of the brain starts to shut down. And if we use the brain like being a orchestra, like there's all different parts of the orchestra, and sometimes you want the wind instruments playing, sometimes you want the strings playing, and the conductor kind of tells everybody what to do when, so it all works together and makes beautiful music, which is what the brain could do. Well, when the conductor shuts down, all your reasoning skills, all your thinking skills, your ability to answer questions kind of goes blank. And so the anxiety or the worry or the fear of looking stupid actually is exponentially going to make it harder for you to actually give a good answer or to even comprehend what you're trying to read. And yet the anxiety, we know, isn't your primary struggle. It's secondary. It means it's secondary or related to the reading struggle. But how about today? You guys, Trevor, you started off saying I can read. Elliot, how about you? Can you read?
I can read. I can write decently well. Spelling is still a bit of a struggle, but I'm working on it. But reading, such a big difference. Like,
Nice.
I can read books. That, like, someone who does not have dyslexia, that just sounds normal to them. But for someone with dyslexia, being able to read a chapter book is truly a game changer.
And you're
Just
15. That's it. You're saying at 15 years old, you now can pick up pretty much any chapter book you want and read it.
exactly. And
Wow.
I can read the thing.
Okay, here's the loaded question for both of you. Ready? How many years did it take to change those skills to where you could just pick up any book you want and read? How many years of that Now Foundations program with that nowprograms.com company online tutoring? How many years of that did it take to get you to be like, I can pick up any book and read it?
Well, it took around 10 years to find the Now program, and in that time we made minimal progress. Only like I remember a couple of years, like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, I barely could read a Cat in the Hat book, which is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
And now, since we found the Now program, being able to read chapter books, it has been a truly harrowing journey.
Nice. And
Dr.
Trevor, how about you?
Dr. Seuss was hard, I had to admit.
All
Yeah,
right.
I was not able to read that. I remember in kindergarten when the teacher found out I couldn't read those books, she gave me these preschooler books, and I was so embarrassed because we had to read a book in front of the class as a thing. So I had to read this small little book, and it was just so mortifying because
Yeah.
some of the kids in there in kindergarten could read chapter books,
Right.
and that was humiliating to me.
And do you remember how long it took in the Now programs? Was it years or months to finish this and strengthen those skills?
Like a singular year, really. It wasn't bad at all. It was pretty easy. Like sure there was the hard moments, but it was a great experience with working with all these different tutors. They're wonderful people, and they have helped us so much. It caught us up years of progress that was wasted because we were dyslexic, no one knew how to help.
Right.
Was made up in a matter of months.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
For both of you, it was like about 6 to 8 months of online tutoring, which means
Yeah.
one session a day, 5 days a week. Why do you think we did 5 days a week of instruction?
Well, so you could keep the ball rolling, keep it going, so we don't, forget. So we didn't forget what we did last time, so we kept going. You don't want to lose your progress,
Mhm.
by skipping a couple of months or whatever, or a day or two or whatever.
Great answer, Elliot. Trevor, what do you think? Why do we do practice every day, Monday through Friday? Like we were
Um,
just relentless. You got to be online every day, Monday through Friday.
Muscle memory.
Yeah.
Muscle memory. That's what I'd say. It now at this point, it's kind of second nature to me to look at each section of the word and then put it together.
Yes.
Like, I forgot what it's called exactly, but we section it off, decoding. Yeah, decoding it. That's it.
Yeah. That's that ability to sound words out. That was the skill you guys lacked. You were trying to memorize as many words as possible, but that's just one piece of good reading skills. Because let's be honest, and you guys will, I'm sure, agree with this. English is a horrible language.
Oh, absolutely agree. Could not agree more. I kept saying during that program, whoever invented the alphabet and all these other things was an absolute
Think of it this way. Think of a Top Chef movie, and we got a kitchen, but we have all 10 of the chefs trying to contribute to one soup. It's like too many chefs throwing stuff in
Yeah.
the soup. It isn't going to turn out so good. And that's kind of how English was put together. It's like 10 parents and one funny, unusual concoction that they've created together. And
Indeed.
so that makes it even harder. So part of reading is decoding, sounding words out. Part of reading is words you have to memorize. You can't sound out yacht. You'll say yachata, and then your kids will laugh at you because that's what's a yachata.
Yeah,
You say, hey, a whole bunch of yachitas came up on the, on land in Florida after Hurricane Milton. Like, no, I think you mean yachts. And yeah, that's because you have to memorize that one. And then the other part of reading is vocabulary, is knowledge, and putting those pieces together so you understand what you're reading. So which piece did we have to change the most for you guys? Was it the sight words? Was it vocabulary, word meaning? Was it decoding, sounding words out?
Decoding was my big struggle at first. Yeah, I think decoding the most for me, I think.
You're both right.
We used to guess.
Yeah, the testing shows us, you guys were guessing. Now, we also made you guys spell some nonsense words.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, guess how many, we just gave you 5 simple nonsense words, and we made you spell them. Guess how many both of you typically got right of those 5 simple nonsense words spelling?
4? Sure.
No more than 1. At the beginning, before you did now foundations, you guys were not phonetically spelling. You really couldn't sound out a nonsense word to spell it any better than you could actually sound it out to read it.
Exactly.
So you would make 1 of 5 mistakes. And this is true of everybody with dyslexia. You might add a sound that belongs in the word when you read it or spell it or say it. You might leave out a sound, substitute a sound, repeat a sound, or reverse 2 sounds. And your brain's not picking up on that you've made those changes.
It's truly weird. Just like you look at a word and you're like, it says this, even though it doesn't. It just, it's crazy how our minds just swap those stuff around and make me think that I'm reading a completely made up word.
Yes. It's all those pieces together. So, but you guys and you've been in a dyslexia school. And like we said, we're not really going to talk about which school, where, or who, not going to talk about other programs. I just want to explain to the audience, you guys were in a very, very prestigious, specialized dyslexia school.
Indeed.
And they're doing a program that what we call in the science world, print to speech. It means it's going from letters and letters and teaching all about letters and syllable types and phonics rules, and then trying to get to what we call phonological awareness, and which is the reverse of what you did in the Now Foundations program. We did something with no letters in the beginning. Remember what we used instead of letters to actually learn?
The little mouth pictures and stuff to try to get us to remember what sounds were attached to different facial movements.
Yeah. And Trevor, what do you think? Do you remember those crazy looking mouth pictures?
Oh yeah, I know. I remember them.
And did they make any sense in the beginning? Like, why did you think we were making you do mouth pictures?
Very confused. I was like, is this some like superstition or something?
Yeah, it seems a little hocus pocus. Like, that's why we tell people, hey, make sure your kids watch the movie Karate Kid. When the sensei tells him, wax my car, and the kid's like, I'm not here to wax your car. You're supposed to teach me karate. And he's like, wax on, wax off. And he's got him going this way with one hand and this way with one hand. And later on, he realizes, he was teaching me karate moves the whole time while I was waxing the car. We did the same thing with those mouth pictures. We taught you how the mouth moved, what it sounded like, what it looked like. We gave him a crazy name. We helped you build 4 parts of the brain to begin to judge number of sounds in the word, order of sounds in the word. And did we make any of those 5 changes so you guys could figure it out? You could tell, did I leave out a sound? Hey, did I flip those 2 sounds around? You didn't need me or your instructor or mom or dad, anybody. Your brain now can figure out how to systematically and efficiently sound out those words. And what did that lead to?
Well, it led to a bunch of different things in the Now program. We started to read books in there and all sorts of things in there. And eventually now I am just reading in class English. We're reading chapter books and stuff by ourselves. In fact, I did great on the exam and stuff. Everything's gone well. It helped me learn how to read and write.
Excellent, Elliot. And Trevor, how about you? How did it feel when these things progressed?
You somehow rearranged my brain and my process of thinking. And now I can read. I don't know exactly how you did it. I don't know the science behind it.
Mhm.
but now I understand and see it a different way than I used to.
And it's not like we changed your vision because we did no vision therapy.
No, you didn't swamp my eyeballs.
Right. They're
Yeah.
all still there. But we took you through a systematic series of lessons that we knew would begin to map visual plus acoustic plus mouth movements, plus what we call some cognition, some thinking skills as well. What's the first sound? But it's not teaching you a bunch of rules. It's not making you memorize a bunch of stuff. And Elliot, you mentioned something before we went on live, and you said, how does your reading compare to your classmates who aren't dyslexic?
I am better than around half the people in my class. Like
But
at
you're dyslexic, Elliot. How is that possible?
Well, the Now program has gotten me ahead of them. I can read more complex books. I'm
Mhm.
better at sounding out. It's amazing.
Nice. Trevor, how about you? How do you feel your reading skills are compared to your classmates? Even though Elliot's one of your classmates, right?
There's quite a few of them that I'm ahead of. I read a little slower than Elliot, but I am more accurate, I've seen.
Good. And both of those skills are really important. We want accuracy is what we have to build first. Speed comes later on. It's backwards when schools start drilling you for reading speed, because reading speed doesn't guarantee better comprehension. In fact, if you're reading faster and we know you're making mistakes, all that guarantees is you're not going to understand what you read.
Indeed.
So accuracy first, and your instructors made you focus on that. Sound it out. Be accurate. Sound it out. And we did a $1 million research study. It's funded by the National Institutes of Child Health and Human Development. It's called a randomized controlled trial. It's like, guys, it's like the science that built penicillin, which is a real powerful antibiotic. It's the same caliber of science we did for how do you change reading fluency. And guess what we found out? It's not by doing repeated readings. It's not by rereading and memorizing words. It's by really making your accuracy so strong that it's effortless, which is what Elliot was talking about earlier. Hey, I can pick up any book and I can just read it. It's not that effortful. And the effortless reading of sounding words out builds more sight words and builds more comprehension. And then you got three parts getting stronger together. And then we see reading speed come right along with it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent.
Great.
So your other thoughts about what was it like to go through that Now Foundations program? Because you said, when we talked a little earlier offline, it's kind of like a third dimension. It's like, how is it that I can do this now?
It's strange. It's like learning how to walk. It's a way to look at it. Nice. Yeah, it's weird because in the beginning of it, the stuff feels a bit childish, you know. It doesn't feel serious, you know.
Right.
You don't feel challenged, but then it starts to ramp up, and you realize that these different skills that they've been teaching you that seem ridiculous are actually helping you. And as you get further along, you are starting to read harder and harder books and not memorize. You're starting to like get better at decoding and all of these different things. They're now starting to read different cool things. It's great. Nice. You just see a lot of progress. It's like you fill in the gaps between my wrinkles in the brain. That's what I'm using my knowledge and how this works. I don't know the science.
Sure.
But that's the effects of it. The gaps in my brain that couldn't put these two things together, now they coincide with each other. And now I have a greater understanding on like how to spell a word instead of swapping around different things.
Right.
Instead of just guessing, because that's what I did.
Yeah. Now you can actually sound it out. And if the word's phonetic, you'll be more likely to figure out how to spell it. So if I said to you guys, hey, let's spell pusillanimous, and you're like, I don't even know what that is. And I said, well, you know, if you saw The Wizard of Oz, you guys seen the movie Wizard of Oz, right?
Been a while, but yeah.
Okay, well, there's a lion in there, and there's a Tin Man, and there's Dorothy, right? And they have different names for him. And the lion is called the Cowardly Lion. But they could have chose to call him the Pusillanimous Lion.
It definitely doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, and pusillanimous is like, you get your tongue off. But pusillanimous is just an SAT word that means cowardly. But if nobody taught you that, you might as well be saying snippety splitch, you know, because that's not a real word and it doesn't mean anything. But until somebody tells you that, hey, actually pusillanimous is real, and now you guys could actually sound it out. If I gave you a piece of paper and a pencil, you'd be at least 80 to 90% correct and go on and just sound it out all the way through it. And why do you think that's the case?
Well, throughout the Now program, there's I forgot what it was called. You gave us a bunch of little blocks on
Yeah, they
the
call it
thing.
segmenting. It's
The
that phonological
segments
awareness test. Segmenting, you bet.
that would help us, where we would go through different things and just sound out do the beats and stuff on the different things, and switch out beats and stuff, and figure out which beat needs to be swapped out with this to make this new completely real word for sure.
That's it.
And
It begins to build those skills.
it
And
helped.
Trevor, how's your? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Elliot.
It helped a lot.
Good. And Trevor, how was your skills with spelling? What was happening with spelling for you?
What do you mean by that? Can you go a little more in depth? What do you mean by that?
Sure. Did your spelling get any better or not?
It got a lot better, honestly.
Okay.
I used to 2-letter syllable words were actually difficult for me. But
Okay.
now I can do 9 syllables. I didn't even know a word had 9 syllables. That was possible. Some
Nice.
pretty big words. Yeah, and now I know how to go each chunk at a time and understand what it means instead of just saying kaku
Yeah.
or whatever that means.
Yeah.
I
Begin
actually
figuring
know
out.
it spells Titanic or something. I don't know.
Very good. Very good. Now here's a little science piece. The typical brain has 100 billion brain cells.
Okay.
But your smarts don't come from the number of cells you have. The smarts come from how many connections those brain cells make. Guess how many connections one brain cell can be involved in? Trevor, give me a number. Big one.
2 million.
All right.
That's a
Elliot,
big
give
one.
me one.
I'll go with 1 billion.
It's actually 40,000. One brain cell can be involved in about 40,000 connections.
That's still
Okay,
pretty
but
big.
your typical brain has 100 trillion connections. So when you did all those lessons each day, we're building more connections in that phonological area, building more connections. And we then train it from that, being able to feel the sounds, hear the sounds, judge number of sounds, then to be using letters with sounds. And you guys talked about going to reading and spelling. Initially, we gave you nonsense words to read and spell. Why do you think we
Yeah.
gave you nonsense words to read and spell and we didn't give you a yacht?
Well, just to demonstrate or whatever how even if it is a nonsense word, we still struggle to read it, spell it because of the syllables and stuff. We switch those around and stuff. It just doesn't matter exactly what the word is. What it matters is just how we spell it. Not the. Am I explaining this weird or something, or
You
do I
got it.
sound like?
You're saying you just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And Trevor, what would you say about that? How did you spell the word? How is a nonsense word something you've memorized? Is a nonsense word something you sound out?
The thing is, you cannot memorize a nonsense word because it's nonsense.
Yeah.
And so that's
Never
a good
seen
way
it
to
before.
test if we know how to spell, because I could have memorized yacht before the Now program, but extracalifragilisticexpialidocious or whatever, I would not memorize that word.
Right.
And you know that because I doubt many people have said that word.
Right.
Unless they're in an asylum.
Yeah.
Whatever. So, yeah, it's not memorizing words is not a good way to learn how to read or write. It's about sounding them out.
And we know developmentally, the skill that builds first is kids begin to sound out words first, and then they slowly start to memorize some words as well. And both skills should start building over time. Sounding out helps you memorize more. If you sound it out, stop, stop. Well, we don't want you to have to sound out the next time. So pretty soon the brain begins to memorize it if you have all those proper skills. Say again, Trevor?
It's like muscle memory, it's like, driving a car. At first it's hard and you don't like to memorize all the things. But then the more you drive it, the more you understand how it works. And it just comes second nature to drive it.
Exactly. And even though we've spent the beginning parts of the program working on those crazy mouth pictures, guess what? We know what happened to your knowledge of those mouth pictures. You think we expect you to know all their names? You think you've forgotten their names?
Oh, I definitely forgot a lot of them. I got a couple of them.
Yeah, but does it matter? Did you need those names to keep reading, Elliot?
No. Not
No.
at all.
So we
It's not that.
used some really cool science to begin to rewire that phonological processor, strengthen that phonological system, show you how to use it with letters, show you how to sound stuff out. And then later we got to the words that aren't words that are phonetic. You can't sound them out. And so now you've got two skills the brain's using. It's part of the word is phonetic. You can sound it out. Part of the word you have to memorize. And the two parts of the brain start to help you build more words that you now can recognize, you can remember, and words you can figure out.
Indeed. Yeah. I remember when I was in school, the dyslexia school, every English every Friday in English class we would have to have memorized these words that we would have to spell out on paper, which did not help with reading at all. In fact, I would forget the words the next week.
Yeah.
And in the Now program, like, I don't even have to worry about that. And as time went on, and I was still in the dyslexia school and the Now program at the same time, like, I was just doing great in the spelling test. I wasn't even having to, like, memorize the words. I would just spell them out. I wouldn't even study. I didn't even need to.
It was
I would just
magic.
100. That easy. It's crazy.
Fabulous. And that meant you had strengthened those parts of the brain that were weaker before. So
Exactly.
dyslexia genetically doesn't give you automatic strengths. It gives you a brain that's got wiring. And here's how we describe it from a neuroscience perspective. Some of the wiring's communicating together really well, and some of it's not. It's kind of missing or misaligned, and it's not as efficient. So what we'd say to educators is you guys have phonological awareness, but you had phonological awareness below the 10th percentile. It wasn't working very well. It wasn't a very strong skill. You had auditory processing cortex, you had auditory brain parts, but they weren't communicating as efficiently as they needed to support your ability to sound out words. So we went in and rewired and strengthened that part. And if we actually put you in an fMRI brain machine before doing that Now Foundations program, we'd see more activity on the right side and you not being very good at sounding out words. After Now Foundations, we see that activity shift over to the left side, and we see new activity on the left side, and your accuracy at sounding out words has become much, much stronger. So we literally have physically rewired part of the brain, because guess what? That's what all learning is. All learning is new wiring, new connections in the brain forming, and the ones you practice the most are the ones that build the most.
Cool. That is really crazy to me, like how just a couple months, your brain is we're rewired in a different way.
That's
Just
what learning is.
Sounding out words in a different way.
Now, here's a crazy question. Did you guys learn about bilabial plosives?
No.
What's bilabial plosives?
Well, guess what? Actually, you did. But you learned them, and they were called lip poppers. Did you learn about lip poppers?
Oh, yes, I do remember lip
I
poppers.
do.
So if we gave you the real science behind the Now Foundations program, we would make you learn words like bilabial plosive. And you'd be like you said, Trevor, bilabial what? It's like, but there's no reason to make the words that more complicated. So let's keep them shorter, simpler. It's just the lips and they're popping. So we're going to call them lip poppers.
It's so
So
simple.
that just sped it up. That made it easier to learn, easier to begin to rewire, and your brain's building that wiring faster in that phonological system. And then when we step away, it's kind of like teaching you how to ride a bike. You got bike riding lessons. You learn how to use the handlebars, and you wear, if it's a grip, you got a brake grip, or you have the front brake grip and a back brake grip, or if it's not grips, then you got to push the pedals back to brake, and you learn all the parts of how it works, and you learn how to balance and turn. And then nobody's going to do any more lessons with you. But if you keep riding, guess what happens to your skills?
You get better.
Yeah.
So what's happening with your reading skills? Because we're not doing any more lessons. About 8 months in, and you guys are both done. We've finished those programs. You are reading at and above grade level. You think that's accurate?
Yeah,
That is
accurate. Completely accurate. Speaking of bikes, you got to learn how to ride a bike.
I hate bikes. I'm going to tell you that.
That's okay. That means you just haven't had the right training yet to build that motor part of the brain for balance and coordination and visual. It's a different set of systems. It's like we talked about earlier. The track star might be good at running track, but that doesn't mean he's a great basketball player because he's not done practice on basketball skills.
Indeed.
I bet he doesn't know how to do the drums either.
Good
Also
point.
Also true.
Good point. Lots of things. So that's the cool part about the human brain is with 100 billion brain cells and 100 trillion connections, it has amazing learning potential. But there's one key scientific element. And I'm going to say it, and you guys guess what you think this means. It's called experience-dependent neuroplasticity. That's the only way the brain learns new skills. It's called experience-dependent neuroplasticity. Guess what that's talking about?
I think I got it.
Go for it, Trevor.
Give us a little push in the right direction, and then our experiences strengthen us because you've given us enough information for us to start walking and forging our own path into the reading world.
Yes.
That's my guess.
All right, Elliot, what do you think?
I'm what he said.
All right. Yeah. Basically, and another way to say it is if we build those foundational skills, like lip poppers, tongue tappers, tongue scrapers, first sound, second sound, third sound, add, omit, substitute, shift, repeating sounds, sounding out words to read. And we've trained all those foundational skills. We've given you all the right experiences to build those skills. And when we walk away, you keep using it, and the experiences you keep using keep building the skills and making them stronger. So we don't expect to put you back online with the Now Company ever again for that same course. You're not going to do a booster of the Now Foundations program. Why is that? Why not?
Well, because you have connected all those neural pathways that we need to read, and now that we've gotten that, we will continue to strengthen them as we continue reading.
I'm a
we
real
don't
boy.
You are, and
Wait, I didn't hear you. What did you say, Trevor?
I'm a real boy now.
Oh, you're a real boy because you have all your skills.
I'm normal now, I think.
Well, let's not say normal. It's not
I'm
abnormal.
in
It's
some ways. Normal's not a good thing. So
see, this is why I put in the post that said we got two witty, gregarious, fun twins. Okay, but wait, let's come back to that twin piece. Everything's supposed to be identical because you guys are identical twins.
Sort of. The reason we look slightly different is I colored my hair a bit different just to make everybody's lives a bit easier.
Okay. That was very
Secondly,
kind of you.
We may be identical twins, but we don't think the same. We are a cell that has been split. From what I know.
And so there's three parts that build your skills. And go ahead, Trevor, and I'll follow up.
Basically what happens with twins is what I've seen. My guess is once we come out in the first few years of our life, we're basically the same person. I remember Ellie and I used to be basically the same. We loved the same things. We loved dinosaurs. We loved the same TV shows.
Yeah.
We were inseparable. But it really started to change when we went to, I'd say it's third grade.
Third.
And we got put in different classes, remember?
Yeah.
And that's when we started to change.
We got our own experiences and sort of became our own people a bit more. I think we were always different because we were two cells that grew up completely separate and became completely different people as we grew differently or whatever. But we were pretty similar as we were growing up. But once we got in different classes and started getting different experiences, we definitely became more different people, and we're now more separate, which is good.
I agree. I feel like my own individual person.
Very nice. So we know that genetics is one part of the brain and building skills. And you guys uniquely have the same exact genetics.
Indeed.
But genetics don't guarantee what's going to actually happen over time.
Exactly.
There's experience and there's environment. So what you were describing, Trevor, was, and Elliot, is you guys got put in different classes and you got a different experiences, and how you reacted to those experiences changed how you learned, changed how you might have acted, might have shaped your personality a little bit. So dyslexia is genetic, which means it's a genetic predisposition. It's an increased likelihood that you guys are going to have kids who might struggle to sound out words.
Indeed.
But it's not a guarantee.
Sure.
Because it depends on the experiences your kids get at, say, like age 3, 4, and 5. And if we give them something new that we have out, and I don't know if I've even shown this to you guys, if we give your kids Lip Letter Land, you know what Lip Letter Land is?
No, that sounds pretty magical. I want to go there.
Check it out. It's on the Apple Store, and right now it's free. And Lip Letterland actually has mouth movies with lip poppers and tongue tappers and tongue scrapers and fat air and skinny air, smile sounds. And it's designed for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds to play and do what you guys did, but they can do it with an app. And if we give that app to your kids and they build that early phonological processing of the acoustic part of sounds, the visual part of sounds, the mouth movement part of sounds, and those crazy names, you could be giving their brain the experience that starts to strengthen that early language skill before they start to struggle to read and spell.
Because the younger they are, the more they learn. Because the older you get, what I've seen is you get more hardened. The world is in one direction.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and there's 2 ways to look at it. You could say the younger brain has more plasticity, which means it's got more neurons that aren't really being used yet. But the older brain has more really laid down hard wiring for how to read in English and how to spell in English. And it's got a different set of wiring for how to read in Spanish and spell in Spanish. And if you decide you want to learn German, you've got to take those 2 really strong language skills of English and Spanish and turn them off while you build this new system of German. So it's harder for the adult because they have to shut some systems off and they try to build this new system. With the kids, they don't have any of those systems. There's no German to shut off. Sorry, there's no Spanish to shut off. They're not that great at English yet either because they're 7. And so it's not as effortful to learn the new language.
Indeed.
So, but both the child or the 60-year-old or even the 80-year-old has what we call experience-dependent neuroplasticity. That means give them the right experiences with the right intensity, which means how much time per day, the right frequency, which means how many days per week, which should be 5, the right specificity of instruction, which means explicit instructions, the right developmental hierarchy of instructions, basic skills, mid-level skills, advanced skills, and enough duration of doing that, which means months or maybe 6 months of practice with it. You'll have rewired the brain because the experience will have rewired that plasticity and made new, stronger connections.
Makes sense.
And that's what you guys did with all of your brain stuff. Now, Kimberly says the map will be amazing. Sorry, I meant the app. The app will be amazing. She's checking my reading skills on there as well. And it can actually help a lot of kids build their skills. Now, she has a question for you guys. How's your comprehension? She's asking about another program that you've not done yet, which is that Now Mental Imagery. But the question is, do you need it or not? Are you able to remember what you read and remember what you hear and explain it back to somebody else?
Funny enough, I have been working on this since I was, around 5.
Right.
When Dad introduced me to audiobooks.
Okay.
Because he was dyslexic and cannot read very well as well. He should do the
Excellent.
program. So his only way that he was really able to read was audiobooks. So he gave that to us. And we have ever since then been very good at comprehension. And we don't get like exact details, but we get the story pretty well and are good at mentally imaging. We get a good picture in our heads.
Excellent. Trevor, what do you think?
But audiobooks is everything to me. If it wasn't for that, I'd have a very short attention span. And I feel like having a good attention span is really important. And it really helped me in that area as well. Because having a long attention span is really important for reading and other things like that.
It is.
And audiobooks are good with visual comprehending on what's going on in the book. Because let's say Dan ran down the sidewalk. If you're not good at visual comprehension, you're not going to fill in the gaps of what's happening on that sidewalk. Is there a smell on that sidewalk? Maybe the grass around the sidewalk. You have to guess and, use some of your basic visual knowledge and a little bit of creativity to understand what's going on.
Excellent. So then is that an example of experience-dependent neuroplasticity? Did you guys get a lot of experience in movie making in your head when you listen to audiobooks?
I would say yes.
And what did it do for you?
Well, it's really I'm really good at visualizing things now. As I read books and stuff, I'm very good at like imagining different scenarios and what's happening in the book, and it makes reading books quite fun.
Yeah, just think how bad it would be if you made no movies when you read a book. And so usually if any of your friends say, oh, I hate reading books, it's so boring, it means they're making no movies. And that's right. It'd be like reading word. word, 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 word. It's like, that's just
That would
boring.
be so annoying.
Yeah.
I would not read books.
It's like listening to a Charlie Brown teacher go, mwah, 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 mwah. You're like, I'm getting nothing out of this.
Yep.
So
Speaking
you
of,
guys built your movie making skills. Your dad, because he was dyslexic, knew that listening to books could actually give you another skill that's going to be helpful for success in life and in school. It didn't change your reading skills per se, but it helped build. And the comprehension piece is actually back over here, a little bit further back behind your ear. And I was a stroke scientist for 10 years. And what we learned from people who had stroke, they would get some damage. And if it damaged this part of the brain, it didn't affect their reading and spelling. They could read and spell just fine. But guess what they couldn't do? They could not understand what you said, and they could not comprehend what they read. You're exactly right, Elliot. They couldn't remember or comprehend because it had impacted and interfered with that memory comprehension part of the brain.
indeed.
You guys built it. So let's talk about superpowers. People are not so clear on understanding what I've explained to you guys, which is superpowers are not genetically endowed. You didn't, it wasn't from birth that you automatically have mental imagery skills. Where did the mental imagery skills come from?
Well, they came from the Now program helping us realize that we already had them in. We had them all along. We just had to sort of unlock them.
And you can use them. Trevor, where did your movie making skills come from? How did you get those skills?
I'd say my dad is a wonderful storyteller. That also helps. And it kind of inspired me as a kid to, like, I don't know, see these worlds. Being having a big imagination as a kid is very important. So ever since I'm still say, but I really like it. It really trained this side of the brain, this little bit right there, to like understand and have a greater imagination of what's going on. It made me a better storyteller, a better actor.
Very good. So very simply said, you guys said you've had lots of practice of movie making, and practice on movie making builds movie making skills.
Exactly.
So it's not that your genetics gave you movie making skills because you're dyslexic. Because I'm dyslexic and I didn't have movie making skills. I actually learned how to do mental imagery when I was 19. I went to work for Patricia Conway Lindemood, my aunt, and her company was building a mental imagery program that she had thought up and was having us all work together with one of her staff to build this mental imagery training program. And I'm like, why didn't someone tell me I could actually control this? I could decide how to picture it. I could make a smaller movie with more information, and it's actually more powerful than making a really long movie with less information. And I began to learn how to do all this movie making stuff. I'm like, but nobody in school had ever taught me actually how the brain works. They tried to give me strategies, find the main idea, think of the characters, look for the tone of the author. Those are all interesting features of reading or language, but they're actually not how the brain comprehends.
Indeed.
And so now we know the brain comprehends by using that left side of the brain to make movies while you read, or make a movie and then turn it into words to explain something to somebody else, or listen to somebody else. And as you're listening to them, you're making a movie from what they're saying so you can understand what they're saying and communicate back. Movie making is something that every listener who's listening to this podcast should be practicing movie making with their kids, just like your dad did with you guys. It's extremely powerful.
It is quite fun. Funner than most games that you could play with your kids.
Absolutely. It builds those skills. And so what we tell some parents is, hey, you got a car ride, or if you have a long commute in the mornings and you got the kids in the car, put a story in, but it's an audio book that you just listen to. It's not the DVD on the back of the car seats. Scrap that thing, because those movies are nothing like the movies your brain could create. Your brain can create much more powerful.
You can make something a lot cooler in your head than, I don't know, Charlie Brown could do up there on the TV in the car.
That's right. Your movie of like the Avatar movie, it can be way more than what they could actually show in the Avatar movie, because you have unlimited control of how you visualize it.
Yeah, it could be. I've made so many just audiobooks are like watching a movie in my bedroom. It's crazy.
Cool.
Just it is so cool. Like, I used to believe ghosts were real because my imagination was that powerful as a kid, where didn't have much control back when I was real young. Like, I imagined some weird stuff. I thought, there's a ghost. Ghosts are real now. That's great.
Yeah. It could be there. That sound could be a ghost outside my door. That's
Exactly.
usually what leads to kids being scared at nighttime, right?
Yeah, imagination can be both a wonderful thing for like storytelling and visualizing things, but sometimes it can go a little haywire and scare you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happens.
And Trevor, how about you? If we give you a question that says, okay, Trevor, how would you sum up what skills you've changed in just a few months, not years, in just a few months? And we need to clarify this again. You guys are in public school. Are you in special ed?
No.
You're in regular classes in public
Yeah,
school.
just regular classes.
Wait. How's that possible? You're dyslexic.
Yeah, well, ever since the Now program, reading and writing has been pretty easy. Reading not even much of an issue anymore. As long as we keep going with our skills on reading and just keep using things we've learned, and just as long as we don't stop reading, we won't lose all those neural connections or whatever they're called, and we'll be good to go for this foreseeable future.
100%. Trevor, what do you
Think about what? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You were visualizing something else, and here's how I know. Do you know how I know you're thinking about something else, Trevor?
Yeah.
Okay, so look at this. I'm going to pull you guys off the screen for a second. Okay, if I'm talking about, well, it looks like, and I'm talking about, well, my house looks like, and it's this level, and it's one story, and where are my eyes going when I'm talking to you?
All over the place. I did the same thing.
And if they're making a movie, usually your eyes go up to the right, or they kind of go up to the left, or they kind of look through you. They're like really not looking at you, they're kind of looking past you. And that tells us the brain's kind of looking at the movie screen in your head.
Yeah,
So,
I usually go up. It's kind of weird. Yeah.
So Trevor, when I was talking with Elliot, your eyes went off and you started thinking about something else. You were
I
picturing.
was thinking about lunch. I was thinking about what I could eat, and my mom said we're going out for lunch today. So I was thinking what we're going to eat, how tasty it's going to be, what kind of restaurant we're going to. I kind of imagine what's going to happen ahead of time, but just in the best way possible. Everything most preferable.
You're great.
Excellent. So what are your thoughts now about being in public school, regular classes?
At first, it was very stressful because I'm not used to this new world. But
explain that. Like, what is this new world? What does that mean to you? What is this new world?
Assignment after assignment is coming at me real quick,
okay.
And I didn't know how to handle this at first because I'm used to a private school environment where they're very they're more slow at this, and I'm working with a bunch of kids. Some of them are ahead of my league, and they're like stacking these assignments, balancing it all out. I was scrambling around a lot at first, but I started but with all the new neural connections I built, I started to be able to understand these assignments. When a year ago, I think this is utter nonsense. What do you mean you want me to interpret self theory? What is that supposed to mean?
I got to pause you, Trevor, because what you just did is something really cool. You just said a nonsense word, and you caught it and you fixed it. You said if they asked me to interpretate, and you went interpret, and nobody had to tell you that you said the word wrong, and nobody had to tell you how to fix it. And so that's a real key example for the audience to understand is you've built your phonological processor so well that it's helping you find words, but it's still new for you because this wasn't something you've had for the first 15 years of your life.
Exactly.
It's been weak. Now it's strong. And now you're starting to use it and it's actually monitoring what you say. And if the word doesn't sound quite right, you're like, wait, interpretate. Did I mean interpret? Or did I mean, some other version? And your brain's like millisecond speed now starting to catch it and correct it. That was cool.
The brain's cool.
I understand what's coming out of my mouth. It's really crazy.
Good. And it should mean that, hey, even though audiobooks are fun, it lets you really just make a lot of movies. Now it should be almost as easy to make movies while you're reading, because is reading as hard as it used to be? Is it the same as it used to be? Is it easier?
Way easier.
And that means the brain has more brain power now to focus on the movie making because the reading is no longer so hard.
A few months after the Now program, actually, or a month after the Now program, I caught myself in the middle of the night, reading a book. Remember, Elliot?
That was funny.
And actually enjoying it. How is that possible?
Yeah. So that's
That
like,
is
okay, this is surreal, right?
And then reading the entire book in one night.
Wow.
I didn't sleep well. But I actually enjoyed it, and that is crazy to me.
And that's why earlier, I think before we went online, you used the phrase, you said, I'm a new boy.
I'm a new man.
New man. There you go. I'm a new teenager.
I'm like, you can call me whatever you want. I'm one of those things. Boy, man, guy.
And you've got stronger reading skills. You've got stronger spelling skills. And the system that we helped you rebuild, it's not just about reading or spelling. It's also helping you store vocabulary words and retrieve words and then make sure you say them correctly. And that system just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger as you keep practicing and using those skills. And there's not a list of 10 rules you have to memorize. There's not a list of syllable types you have to memorize. You now just have the automatic skills of sounding out words to read, sounding out words to spell, which also begins to build better memorization of words, which also begins to build ease and fluency of reading, and lets you get to the real purpose of reading. What's the real purpose of reading? Why do they want you to read books?
Well, because there's lots of them. They have lots of information, and I don't always have like a phone on me to do audiobooks. It's good to be able to read. I can also read, I don't know, assignments that teachers give me. There are things like I can read signs easier. Almost everywhere in the world, there's something to read that is probably very important.
And now you guys are better able to do it.
I can do
now
it.
You're
yeah.
better able to put those skills to use those skills, figure it out, and basically, the world's your oyster. Make it what you want it to be. You guys chose the school you wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And like Trevor said, but now you're learning skills you didn't have before. Organization skills, time management skills, trying to figure out, how much time it's going to take to read this book chapter for that chapter test I have next week. So it's like we call them project management skills, but they're really like school skills, putting all those pieces together.
They're life skills, really, in the end, because even adults have to do things like that.
Exactly. Kimberly has one really great question. She says, did you guys have language retrieval trouble with talking as well? Because her son doesn't use big words yet, meaning as her son goes through this Now Foundations program, you should start to see him be able to store big words and retrieve big words. You guys have had pretty strong vocabularies.
Yes.
But what do you think is going to happen to him now that you read more?
I'm going to have a big vocabulary, even bigger one now. And I'm going to say a lot of things. People say, oh, that guy's real smart. He's saying a bunch of words I don't understand. Because with reading and like audiobooks, they kind of coincide because these authors have great vocabularies, and using context clues, you can understand these new vocabulary words and start using them, and use them in your everyday life.
Indeed. I absolutely agree with you.
The same words for each other.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think your story is really powerful because even with the same genetics, one of you had a little bit better reading skills than the other, a little bit better spelling skills than the other, but both of you had severe difficulties in reading and spelling.
Very much so.
Both of you have changed those skills because it's what we call a evidence-based, empirically tested and proven program, which is the caliber of all medical science. All medical science means you can't be given a medicine to take unless it's been tested and thoroughly proven to be effective. And the knowledge of the physician's one piece of it, but the effectiveness and the degree of science behind the medicine is the other piece. And the two together allows us to take kids like you at age 15 and just in a few months rapidly change your ability to sound out words for read and spell. And then we pull back. How come? What's going to happen next?
Well, we no longer need any more assistance because we're now we are now caught up to everybody else, and we can continue to forge onward with our new neural pathways.
Trevor, what do you think? Elliot's talking big.
He talked really big. I was just thinking about the big words he just said, trying to comprehend those. Forge a new path, that was deep. Anyway, I feel like it's gonna now I'm more competent, you could say, with
Mhm.
these new skills. And now I'm more prepared to learn new skills and be able to understand things like this better.
And here's one great question from you. This is from Michelle, and she says, "Does this change how you look at your future careers?
Oh,
What are
yeah.
your options?
Boy,
What are
I
your
want to be a
goals?"
history teacher.
All right,
I'm,
nice,
I'm thinking about being an author, which
excellent.
is
What?
pretty big. I want to at least write one book in my lifetime. That's on my bucket list.
Mhm.
I didn't think that was going to be possible for me, but now
Mhm.
that's on the table. I like telling stories, and now I am better at writing and stuff. So that's on the table now. Who knows a dyslexic person can write a book? Sounds unheard of. It's happened, but I didn't think it would be. I thought it'd be out of reach for me.
That's right. And there's other dyslexics who have written books, but when you actually go out talking about it, well, they actually used a ghostwriter or they used speech to text. So they actually didn't really write the book. They used
Yeah.
technology to help them get content out. You guys can now do both. You can write the book yourself. You can use a ghostwriter to work with you. You can use speech to text. You have all of the options because you have more school skills. There's my dyslexia coming through, but I caught it. You have
Yeah.
more skills or more tools in your toolbox to be able to chart your course and choose what you're going to do and where you want to go, what you want to study, and what you want to become. I think
Indeed.
history teacher, book author, fabulous goals, guys. And I think you're going to excel really well. And your story, as Kimberly says, is very encouraging to other kids. So I can't thank you enough for jumping online with us in Dyslexia Success Stories because you too are a dyslexia success story.
Thank
Powerful
you.
work, guys. Thanks
Remember,
again.
kids, it's a now program. Give it a shot. It's really good.
Okay. And if they can't afford the now programs, guess what we do, guys? We actually
Yeah.
write contracts with their school. We will let their school pay us and we'll give the kids the services and it doesn't cost the kids any money. There's lots of ways to get this stuff available. And the new Lip Letterland app, if you go to the Apple Store, Android will be out hopefully in a few more weeks. But Lip Letterland, and lip letter is one word, so don't put any spaces, right? Lip and letter together, and it'll pop up. That is for your 4, 5, 6-year-olds. We will be coming out with more versions of it for 15-year-olds, for 10-year-olds, for 45-year-olds that will actually use the app technology and some artificial intelligence algorithms that really help that system be able to be built without all the expense of doing the daily tutoring or the daily instruction. So technology is fascinating.
This is the next step in the modern age of dyslexia.
There we go.
Yeah.
More empowerment earlier for more brain creativity. And then you guys get to do what you want to do.
Indeed.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Trevor Elliot, real pleasure to chat with you guys. Thanks for sharing your story. And yeah, please take a bow. And I'm sure your parents are thrilled with how loquacious you are. And you can look that one up and how well you guys present and tell your story. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again in 2 weeks for another set of Dyslexia Success Stories. Next week at 5 p.m. Eastern Time is our Dyslexia Discussions podcast, where we dive into some more deeper content. Thanks so much. And we're going to switch off, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, guys.
Bye.